Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're examining a climate event that demands our absolute, undivided attention. We're talking about the 2.5 degrees Celsius anomaly and India's impending 2026 Super El Niño threat. Let's get right into it.
Plus 2.5 degrees Celsius. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds like a remarkably small number, doesn't it? Like a tiny little bump on your living room thermostat. But when we place this exact number in the context of the massive Pacific Ocean, it literally represents the strongest meteorological threat in human history.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how critical the historical context is. The last time we saw a thermal shift this severe was the Super El Niño of 1876. During that specific anomaly, the monsoons completely collapsed for 2 consecutive years. The human toll was just catastrophic. 58 million Indians ran out of food. It resulted in 5 to 10 million casualties, effectively wiping out 3 to 4% of the entire global population at the time.
To understand how this impacts us today, we're going to follow a clear chain of falling dominoes. We'll start with the invisible 2026 threat, explore the anatomy of the monsoon economy, see exactly how this dual-engine system breaks, examine the agricultural timing trap, trace the economic crash loop, and finally look at India's defenses and systemic immunity.
Part 1. The invisible 2026 threat.
Right now, global attention is understandably consumed by highly visible crises. We're looking at instability in West Asia, surging vegetable oil prices, and serious warnings about resource consumption. But while the world is busy watching inflation and geopolitics, there is a massive, invisible threat assembling 12,000 kilometers away in the Pacific Ocean, and it's projected to fully form in May of 2026.
Part 2. Anatomy of the monsoon economy. To understand the threat, we have to look at how things normally work. 80% of India's water requirement is fulfilled by the monsoons, and 44% of farmlands have absolutely no irrigation. They rely entirely on the clouds. The harvest from these lands employs 43% of the total workforce. When that harvest is good, rural income rises. And here's the kicker. That rural income drives 37% of all FMCG, or fast-moving consumer goods, spending in the country. That everyday world demand directly dictates factory output for essentials like tractors and textiles. The Asian Development Bank provides a really crucial metric that ties this whole system together. They calculate that a 1% increase in rain equals a 0.16% addition to total GDP. So this firmly connects a meteorological input directly to a hard macroeconomic output. So how exactly do those rain clouds arrive? Well, it all comes down to basic atmospheric physics. Think of the Indian landmass in summer as a hot room, baking at 40 to 45 degrees Celsius. The hot, light air rises and escapes, creating a low-pressure vacuum. Meanwhile, the Indian Ocean is like an open window. It sits at a cooler 28 to 30 degrees, acting as a high-pressure zone. The fundamental rule of weather here is that wind inherently flows from packed, high pressure to empty, low pressure. So it carries all that ocean moisture directly onto the land. Part 3. Breaking the dual-engine system. Okay, let's dive into this. Normally, India relies on this beautifully synergistic dual-engine architecture. Window 1 is our primary engine from the Indian Ocean, but Window 2 is the Pacific engine. Under normal conditions, a low-pressure vacuum over Indonesia acts like a massive turbocharger. Trade winds push moisture west, and this Indonesian vacuum pulls additional moisture toward India, creating a really abundant monsoon season. But here is the critical failure during the 2026 anomaly. The system just completely flips. That warm pool of water, our second hot room, basically packs up its bags and walks east across the Pacific. That critical moisture magnet over Indonesia simply vanishes into thin air. Take a moment to look at this diagnostic matrix, which shows the Pacific seesaw effect perfectly. Notice the contrast. A normal monsoon engine features a strong westward flow, a low-pressure moisture vacuum, and a cool, dense, high-pressure system. That delivers abundant, timely rainfall. Now, look at the Super El Niño disruption. It brings a weakened or reversed flow. The vacuum becomes a high-pressure moisture wall. The surface warms up, the pressure gap weakens, and the result? Rains that are late, weak, and highly patchy. What we are looking at is specifically a 3-pronged attack on the monsoon engine. First, the ocean cooks. The high pressure weakens as the surface warms, meaning the wind just loses its reason to rush toward the land. Second, the inverted window. That former low-pressure vacuum over Indonesia turns into a high-pressure zone, actively pushing moisture away from India like a brick wall. And third, dead trade winds. This massive reduction in the eastward moisture push means the rains arrive late, They arrive weak, and they are terribly patchy.
Part 4. The Agriculture Timing Trap.
You see, farmers operate on a very strict, frankly, agonizing timeline. In April, they plow the land, and that's when their initial debt is incurred. Come May, they are purchasing seeds on credit, marking the absolute peak of their economic vulnerability. By June, they're just waiting on the sky. The sheer tragedy of this 2026 projection is the August and September El Niño intersection. The meteorological failure arrives exactly at peak crop vulnerability. Late rain can't save a dying crop. Weak rain cannot refill a dried well. And patchy rain certainly cannot feed 600 million agricultural dependents.
Part 5. The Economic Crash Loop. And this brilliantly illustrates the direct chain reaction we're facing. Step 1 is meteorology. The 2.5-degree anomaly collapses the dual-engine monsoon. Step 2 is agriculture. This triggers mass crop failures across the 44% of rain-fed farmlands, leading to a total evaporation of farmer income. Step 3 is consumption. A collapse in rural FMCG spend leads directly to factory slowdowns. And finally, Step 4, the macroeconomy. The nation suffers GDP contraction right alongside spiking food inflation.
Now, this macroeconomic crash loop is not just some theoretical risk. It is a documented, repeating pattern. Back in 1972, a similar disruption caused GDP to crash to negative 0.6%. In 2002, GDP fell from 6% down to 4%. And in 2015, food inflation hit a staggering 7%. The data from these previous cycles is absolutely clear. We have seen this happen before.
Part 6. Defenses and Systemic Immunity.
Our first line of defense is our buffer stocks. Based on early projections for April 2026, the Food Corporation of India is holding 604 lakh tons of wheat and rice. That is 604 lakh tons. This is nearly 3 times the mandatory buffer of 210 lakh tons. So unlike back in 1876, this massive firewall does prevent immediate famine. But it is absolutely vital to understand that while it saves lives, it doesn't fix the broader economic GDP loop. To achieve true systemic immunity, we have to rely on 2 pillars. Pillar 1 is agricultural infrastructure. Right now, a state like Maharashtra is at only 18% irrigation, while Karnataka is at 37%. The immediate mandate here is the aggressive deployment of solar-powered micro-irrigation systems to finally decouple our farming from rainfall. Pillar 2 is the macroeconomic transition, often called the South Korea model. Over the long term, this means graduating that 40% agriculturally dependent population into manufacturing and IP services.
So, what does this all mean? The fundamental truth is this: the fate of 600 million people cannot remain tied to a random Pacific current. The clock is ticking toward May 2026. Will India's farmers finally decouple from the sky before the Pacific anomaly arrives? Thank you for joining me for this explainer.